I mean, you want to talk about someone that may come in at starting because of the money, but they'll stay. And these women told us, I came in for the money. I stayed because I love what I do. I am proud to tell my kids that I'm building our city. I'm building our town. Like, they're so excited. But first of all, they're moms. So we talked to women, and we had actually 25% of the tradeswomen that we interviewed said that they received disciplinary action for having to take off a day to take care of their family. Only 4% of women in the managerial positions at the construction company said they faced that. The women said they don't have PTO in the field, but the women in the managerial positions have PTO. It's things like that, like, what?
Today, I sit down with the VP of Innovations and Advancements from the National Center for Construction, Education, and Research. You might know it as NCCER. And we're going to talk about the two groups that are just an untapped goldmine for helping you overcome the labor shortage. Let's just dig right into it. I want to welcome to today's show, Jennifer Wilkerson with the NCCER. Jennifer, I am super excited to welcome you to the show today.
I am so happy to be here. I've been waiting to be on this show.
Well, we met not that long ago. I got to be on your show, which was a blast. I felt like we really connected well. And I know that we're going to have a fun conversation today because there's just so much data and information you can bring to this conversation about why we're really struggling to get people into the trades, and even beyond that, keep them in the trades, because I see that retention is a big problem. A lot of people think they have hiring issues, but when you issue 2 times the W-2s of the employees you have, you don't have a hiring issue, you have a retention issue. And so we'll get to talk about that. So let me start off by just saying this. Just think of the entire industry. What do you think is really holding the industry back right now? What's that thing that we might not like to say out loud, but we really need to acknowledge it, that's keeping us from being able to get more people into the trade?
There's so many things.
Pick the big one that we want to talk about for a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to hit on 2 of them. One thing is contractors are super focused on the short game. And I get it. I need someone today. But what happened is we've stopped focusing on the long game, which is you get young people interested at a young age. You define success in a way that meets them where they are. Their needs are, what their interests are, what their ambition is. We've gotten out of the business of the long game, creating that. And then we've got 51% of our population that are women. We really have to focus on all these different groups and what they bring to the table and how we get in their spaces where they are to tell them about our industry, because we haven't done a good job at that either. We're building the hospitals and the community centers and the schools, and we have a whole generation of people that want to give back to their communities. We're just not doing a good job of saying who we are and how they can participate in this incredible industry.
Well, and I think that historically, the industry as a whole has not done a very good job of making these jobs attractive. When knowledge work became the thing in the 90s and the 2000s, I think a lot of these construction companies had the mindset like the newspapers had when the internet came out. This isn't going to bother us. This isn't going to hurt us. And now we've got remote workers who can work from an office. It's air conditioned. It's safe. They don't have to worry about all of these things. And what I see is, especially in construction, there really hasn't been a lot that's changed in the way we treat our people and the way that the work environment that they're in. And some of that is just a result of the industry. We can't really change it. But we can promote it differently. We can talk about it differently. And we're not doing that as much as we should yet.
Yeah, I don't think we focus enough on the positives. Like I said, that giving back to the communities, what we're really doing. We get so busy with the jobs at hand. And I get it, right? Like contractors in the business of building stuff.
Yeah.
Like, let's go do it and let's get it done and let's be on time and it's quality and budget and all of these things. But it's also, what are you doing for that community? And how are you really outreaching and showing what these jobs, these careers in our industry offer people and offer the connection to other people? So I absolutely think that you're right there. We took our eye off the ball, 110%. We've tracked it in our research all the way back to World War II, when we see that people came back with their GI Bills and our country said, you know what, college, that's what you should do. Go to college. That equates to success. Let's move in that direction. And you can literally watch through the years as what used to be called industrial arts and shop class and even culinary arts, that was home ec, and all the career and tech stuff kind of got pushed to the side. And so we shouldn't be surprised that if we equate success to one pathway, it is a college degree and as high as you can go up in college, and we don't look at all of these other pathways to success, we've missed the bus there.
Yeah. I think that a lot of the physicality of the industry and just being in the trades, working with your hands, very attractive to some people and really turns some people off. Even though I see what's happening in the industry right now and the amount of technology that is coming out and the equipment that is coming out really is making it easier on the human body to do some of this stuff. I read somewhere that the average retirement age in the construction industry is 61, I think. It's early. And really that's just because our bodies can't deal with this stuff. But I see that there's this trend now towards a little bit more mechanization and providing equipment and better safety and support and that kind of stuff, which hopefully does help. But to your point about pushing towards college, and I say this all the time, but some of these tradesmen and women, the amount of money they can make without college debt is insane. And it only takes a couple of years in the same amount of time it takes you to go to college. And you're making way more money. And you've got an industry that is never going to go away.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it doesn't mean you can't go to college. You know what happens when you go into construction? You can pay for college without taking out a loan. That's what happens. Yeah. We talk about this all the time. What industry can you legitimately go from your tools to owning your own business? I mean, there's a lot of great things out there, but guess what? You might start as a nurse. You're not going to own the hospital. You might start on a conveyor belt. You're not going to own necessarily the plant. You can in construction. You can legitimately start on your tools and you can own that business, and you can take lots of business classes and go to college and get an MBA or go into a different field. I think people too have a really narrow vision of what construction is, and they don't think about the construction management and the architecture and the engineering. And hey, you know what? We need accountants too, and we need all other professions too. It's just that we're building the world. That's the difference.
And that's the thing too. So I'm heavily involved in the steel industry. And the thing I love about iron workers is that most of the time their work gets covered up, right? It's either concrete poured around it or there's glass and everything on the outside. And so, but the amount of pride that exists for these people, we'll drive through town. They're like, yep, I built that. Yep, I built that. Yep. And I don't see that in a lot of other industries. I don't see that we have that. Maybe in medical, if you run across someone, you save their life, that's great. But I don't see that a lot of other industries have that. Yeah, I built that website or whatever it is. I helped that customer with their support needs. But in construction, just the amount of pride that exists here in the industry with the people that are here, it blows my mind that more people aren't attracted to it.
We talk to people all the time. When we do interviews, we do videos, we talk to young people, we talk to people that have been in the industry for a long time, and all of them mention, I love showing my family what I've built. Mm-hmm. I love taking my kids around, or I tell my parents, guess what I just built? That is just it's ingrained in people that work in our industry, is they're so excited to point out to anyone just the things they've got to participate in. And I think every day, when you can walk at the end of the day and look back at that project site you're leaving and see what you're creating and what you're building, there is pride in that. There's pride in what we can physically do and what we can mentally do, because it takes all those pieces. These are super intelligent, trained people that are building our hospitals and our community centers and our schools. And so that's important to remember.
These construction company owners that we were talking about, what's something that they could do to really help just flip this around and make it so that people in their local community take notice and say, hey, that's something I want to be a part of? How can we start attracting, whether it's the generation just getting out of school, like that's one part, or I see a lot of people that are doing career switches. And especially when there's economic turmoil, they're like, I want to be in an industry that's not as impacted by economic fluctuations, which construction and service is typically not as impacted as greatly. So I see a lot of people switching careers. How do we become more attractive to those people? How do we get them to start applying?
Yeah, I think this is a multifaceted approach.
Yeah.
There's some simple things. I think one thing I talk to contractors, here's what I always ask them. What school is closest to your project sites? And a lot of them don't know. I've been with a group of project managers and I put that out there and I say, what is the closest school to you? They don't know. They don't know. So I would say one thing from the part that you're saying, okay, the school age students, know what the closest schools are. You want to really make a difference, then you need to find that out. And then I have contractors tell me, well, I don't know what to say and I don't know who to call and I don't know what to do to start talking to these schools. So I always tell them, you know what? Call up the school and say, hey, I'd love to do a breakfast for your teachers. I'd love to do a lunch for your teachers. I just want to come in and talk to them. And you get in there and you just tell them, hey, we're building this multifamily housing unit down the street. We're building this community center. We're building whatever. We'd love to just come and talk to your kids sometime and tell them a little bit about construction careers. Do you know how many schools are going to say no? I taught high school English for 13 years. I would have loved for someone to have said, hey, we just want to come and tell the kids. And then I have contractors say, well, I don't know what to say. It doesn't take much. They just want to hear a little bit about what you do. But with us, we have Build Your Future, which has all kinds of free resources. Build Your Future, you can go online and find it, that already have pre-canned games and presentations and whatever. And I know that this can be scary for people. So we kind of take that out of it and just say, look, if you could just get your foot in the door and talk to them, I think that's one thing, is making relationships with schools. Again, I know that's the long game. Then I think the other thing that we have to do is we do need to look at our community centers, our faith-based groups. There's a lot of people out there for what you're talking about, career change ages, people that are wanting to do things. I have seen amazing programs, the Indiana Construction Roundtable up in Indiana that went into even homeless shelters and stuff and started doing all kinds of things to appeal to help them get on their feet. Now, that's much harder for a single contractor to go and do. But contractors really should get in touch with some of their local faith-based groups, community centers. Do they have people that are looking to change careers? And there's huge opportunities there for them to go and talk to people, even the women's centers and things like that. Just go out and talk to them and get things started. You would be surprised. We just did a big project with Lowe's down in Fort Myers called the Rapid Recovery Academy. And obviously Fort Myers got hit by the terrible hurricane last fall. But there were all these people that lost their jobs, lost their homes, lost everything. And they were like so willing to do this. And we did this fast track program for them just to get the basic skills to get on project sites. And it was the most emotional graduation. Our CEO and some of our other executives went down there and they said, wow, these people were just like, well, we videoed them and it was like, I can't wait to work in construction. I had no idea about this. I'm so excited. This is changing my life. It's changing my family's life. I think there's huge opportunities in all the communities across the United States. Is just finding that right connection that's out there that can be feeders to your company.
I love what you're saying because, so often I talk to construction company owners and HR departments and they're like, well, we post on Indeed and just nobody wants to apply for our jobs. I love what you're saying. And I completely agree. You can't hide behind the computer anymore. You have to get out into the community and let people know that you're there. Putting the big banner on the construction site or on the fence. Yeah, that's great. But people still don't understand what it means. You have to get down there, shake their hands, spend time with them. I love that. Just coming into a classroom and just talking to these kids about opportunities that exist. Maybe not everybody wants to go to college. And a lot of people don't. But they think that's the only option they have because no one is giving them other options. And it reminded me of a saying I heard a long time ago, which is, ignorance on fire is way better than intelligence on ice.
Wow, that's impactful.
And we often think we have to know exactly what to say. We have to be perfect. We have to pitch it just the right way. I would rather you show up and just blab about how awesome it is and how much you enjoy it and the lifestyle it's created for you, and just share your story. When you go into these classrooms, don't worry about what you're going to say. They're going to latch onto your story and your journey and what you went through, and it's going to be so impactful. They're going to go home and tell mom and dad. And before you know it, you're going to have a future workforce.
And we forget in this industry, like we think everyone understands what construction is. There are kids that have never seen a hammer. They don't even know what welding is. They have no idea the electrical side of it. And we need to understand that. Here's a crazy fact. So there are over 300,000 kids in the construction and architecture cluster, career cluster in the United States. Only about 20 to 24% actually go into our industry, even after being in classes in high school. And so when we ask the teachers and stuff, why aren't they going into our industry? They're like, they don't know how. They don't know anybody that's been in construction. Nobody has come and talked to them about, how do I get in there? What companies do this? What does it mean to work? They learn the skills in high school. They're doing it in their classes, but they don't know what's next. And it's because we're not connecting. We're not making those connections with those schools.
I was friends down here in Arizona, a company that started a plumbing academy so that kids could learn about plumbing. And it was like a 6-week program. And then he'd put them in the field and give them a job as soon as they got out of high school. And I shared that with my nephew, who was 24 at the time. And he's like, I don't want to clean toilets for an unclogged toilet. The belief is, I think people are so ignorant. They just don't know what they don't know about these jobs. Plumbing, unclogging toilets is such a small piece of plumbing. Like, that is something that just, almost never happens. Like, most plumbing stuff is way different. And then when you get into the industrial side and being pipe layers, and there's just so many opportunities that these skills translate into. It's incredible. But hey, I love talking about the next generation, but I want to talk about another part of being able to attract more people into the trades. Something you and I are both very passionate about is getting more women in the trades. Half the population in this country is women. And we as an industry aren't doing a whole lot to attract them. And they are not looking for your jobs on Indeed. It's that simple.
No. Because they don't even know it applies to them. They don't even know that they could do it.
So tell me about that. What has the NCR learned about getting more women in the trades? I know you do a lot of research around this. Talk to us about, how do we do this?
We just released a white paper on this.
Stop turning away work, burning out your team, and working so hard. Learn about the proven process that businesses everywhere are using to save time, save money, and hire all the people they need. We'll train your team to implement and run this process in-house so you can grow as fast as you want. Book a call with our team at corematters.com.
It's called, in her own words, improving project outcomes. And we looked at a couple different factors here. Number one, we wanted to take the approach of, how does it benefit you as a contractor to have women as part of your crew? Like, why do you want them on your project sites? And so we actually spoke to 176 tradeswomen in the field, went and talked to them. We surveyed another 770 women in construction. We talked to managers on some of these project sites and asked them. And it really came down to some neat things on that side of it. First of all, women are very team focused. We naturally, women have, and you can call it motherly instincts or whatever you want to call it, but we want everyone to rise to the occasion. So there were surveys of over 2,500 people, with 97% being men. And the men were asked about their performance and how they do on projects. And do you know that they were also asked if they had any women in the crew mix that they were on? The men that had women on their crews actually answered more positively about their productivity and working as a team than the men that were not part of a crew with women. Then we found out women are more organized. We always want to organize everything, right? Like, we know that in OSHA, housekeeping is part of what you're supposed to do. You have to have a site that is clean to keep injuries away. So women this is something they excel at. Women excel at the design process. Women don't have the brute strength, the physical strength, or necessarily the experience that men do. So they really do follow those design plans to the T and the directions to the T, because that's just part of who they are. So all of these things came together, and we had people telling us, like I said, in managerial positions, project managers, superintendents, just like, women really work extremely safely. They follow exactly how it's designed and how it's planned, how it's engineered, because they just have that and they bring that to the project site. What we did here as far as terms of recruiting is what needs to be done differently here. And I think there's probably no surprises here. We have so many people that think, well, we're just going to bring some porta potties in and paint them pink. And we're going to do a few other things here and there. And therefore, women are going to feel like they're a part of this and they're going to be recruited here. First of all, there was a survey done, and I wish I could recall the group that interviewed 100 students, boys and girls. And overwhelmingly, 98% of the girls, when they were asked, would they consider going to construction, they said no. And they asked them why, and they said, because I'm unable to do what's needed to be in construction. Shame on us that girls think it's all about physical strength and certain aspects that they don't feel they're capable of. So our women said, here's what needs to happen. Number one, we do need to take into consideration that a lot of them are moms. Okay. I mean, who better to attract than the single mom that's working in the restaurant industry that really wants better for her kids? I mean, you want to talk about someone that may come in at starting because of the money, but they'll stay. And these women told us, I came in for the money. I stayed because I love what I do. I am proud to tell my kids that I'm building our city. I'm building our town. Like, they're so excited. But first of all, they're moms. So we talked to women, and we had actually 25% of the tradeswomen that we interviewed said that they received disciplinary action for having to take off a day to take care of their family. Only 4% of women in the managerial positions at the construction companies said they faced that. The women said they don't have PTO in the field, but the women in the managerial positions have PTO. It's things like that. Like, what? I mean, PTO should be available in the field for men and women, but for women, when we know that they are the primary caregivers to not only their own children, but a lot of times to their family, their elderly, their grandparents, their parents, but we're not willing to make a few concessions to have these women on our sites when, like you said, 51% of the population are women. So guess what? You need to staff up your job, and you're telling me you don't hire women. You must not need to staff that job up pretty badly.
Yeah. It's interesting. I worked with a client this years ago, and I remember I was looking at how long you had to be there to earn PTO. And unless you were a foreman or above, so if you were just a craft worker, you had to be there 5 years to get your first week of PTO. And I told him, I said, the average employee is only going to be with you for 3.1. That's pretty much the industry average, national average for how long someone's with an employer. So you're basically saying you never want to offer PTO. This was a few years ago before the pandemic. And I go, why? Why do you not offer PTO? It's like, well, that's the way my dad's company did it. Well, why? Well, that's the way granddad's company did it. He was like a third generation. And I'm like, well, why? Well, I don't know. That's just the way we've always done it. And I think that mentality is just, it's very prevalent in the industry of we don't change, everybody changes to meet our needs. Right. Like, and we're not going to start offering PTO. I'm like, but everybody offers some kind of PTO now. And it's not just single moms. There's single dads out there too. That's right. That have to be able to do this. And to put that extra pressure and that extra stress on them that says, hey, you can't take a day off when your kid's sick. They can't take those jobs. They just can't. Or they'll take the job and then they'll end up getting fired because you won't tolerate the fact that they have sick kids at home. We had a client one time, not in construction, they were in home services. And I'll never forget, I talked to this manager and I'm like, why didn't you hire this girl? He goes, I found out she's a single mom with 2 kids. I was like, well, first off, you're not allowed to make that decision. Single parents are some of the most dedicated, hardworking, because they don't have a backup plan. They don't have that. He's like, yeah, I just couldn't risk it. And I was just like, that mentality needs to shift. That's got to go away. But I love what you said about the physicality part of it. And I think that it's on both sides. Like, as an industry, we need to do better. But on the other side, we need to make it so that the women can actually hear us. And so we need to start changing the narrative enough, the way we communicate that, so that we like, hey, we are here to attract women. And we know that we'll do better. Any of our clients that have women in the field, they better crews. The jobs are safer, like you said. There's more profitability because they're seeing things further out than often the men are. And not to make this a conversation about the genders or anything, but we're different. Men and women are different. We have different skill sets, different innate things that we're good at. And I just think there's so much opportunity. But when you say, hey, we're not going to change the job site, we're not going to change who we are to accommodate 51% of the population.
Right.
Like, we might as well just give up. Like, that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
So we talked about some of the high level things that we could do. What's something that someone could do, let's say by the end of within a week of hearing this, that they could do to make a little bit of movement towards attracting more women into construction?
Well, I joked around about the pink porta potties and things like that, but do your sites truly accommodate women?
Mm-hmm.
Are you really doing that? So we talked to some construction sites that said, we really looked into this, even about something as simple as the porta potties. I mean, I don't want to bring that up, but let's be honest about it. Women have things they need to carry with them to the restroom.
Yeah.
And women need to dispose of things. And we literally had women that said, we don't have anywhere to do that. Mm-hmm. Like there's nothing in the porta potties. There's nothing for us to do. So we talked to some companies that said, look, we started having our janitorial services provide trash cans right outside and some boxes right outside of the women's porta potties, making those separate. It's something real simple.
Yeah, that is very simple.
Because here's the thing about it is you have to look at when someone comes to your project sites, do they look friendly to them? Or do they look like you want them there? Because if it doesn't look like you want them there, then it's not going to take very long for them to jump and go somewhere else. And you made a really good point earlier. We're competing against remote work from home, do this, do that. But there's a lot of people that want the physical side of it, but we have to make our project sites attractive. Mm-hmm. We have to do things. Are we bringing women on and are we giving them the training that they need? Do they have this? Because y'all girls are not exposed to construction as easily as young boys are. Let's be honest about it. Boys start building things, doing things. Girls, we send them to do something else. Luckily, we have some fathers that are really good about that and find out that the girls are just as good as the boys at building things. But they do need to know there's someone there to help them understand things and to give them the training. That's what they want. The women we talked to said, show me some training. Show me, look, I'll come and start doing the most laborious, labor-intense work there and let me work my way up. You show me there's some training, I'm there. Here's another thing that the women said. We had women that had worked in the industry for 15 years that said, I've never seen a female foreman. I've never seen a female superintendent. People have to see that they can get to where they want to go. And I'm not saying, I am never saying promote somebody simply because of their gender, because of their race or anything else, but train them. Say, you know what? I'm going to identify some new people on this project site and I'm going to put them on a track and I'm going to give them a little extra time to train them to get the skills they need to be that person. Because again, when I come to your project site, I'm looking around. Does this look like you want me here? Are people treating me like that? My husband owns a welding fabrication shop. And so him and I we have two daughters, 31 and 21. So we talk about this all the time. Would you want your young women working for some of the companies, some of the GCs you work for? He's like, there's some I would, but there's some I would not. And he said, I could just be on the site and say, I would not want my girls there. And let me tell you something too, because people always say this in construction. I don't want my kids to go into it. Both of my girls are in it. My older one she's 31. She runs our welding fabrication shop. And my younger one is in a construction management program. And I'm proud that both of my girls are going into construction. And I believe we have to do that. If you have girls at home and you're not giving them that opportunity to empower them to build the world, shame on you. We should be opening it up because we don't even want our own kids to go into construction. Then no one's going to want to go into construction.
Yeah, not to dive into this, but I read an article. AI is this new hot topic everybody's talking about. 300 million jobs are going to be gone in the next 5 years because of AI. You know what's not on that list? Building things. It's not on that list. So if you want security in a career, what a great way to go. And there is a lot too. I think too that one of the things that I see often is people are like, well, women don't want to be here because the industry as a whole there's not a lot of respect for women. And one of the things that I found in talking to women, they're like, I kind of knew what I was getting into. Like I knew it was kind of a good old boys club, but I want to be here. And I found that as long as you're respectful, they understand that you're going to slip up and those kinds of things, but just have respect. And that goes for both sides. One of the things we teach is when you're onboarding someone, learn their name when they show up for the first day and actually greet them when they're on the job site for the first day. Because what happens more often than not is the new person shows up and they stand around until someone walks by and they're like, am I in the right place? Like, where am I supposed to be? And then finally they're like, oh, I'll go get superintendent. He'll come talk to you. the superintendent will walk up and say, "Hey, new guy," or "Hey, rookie." And it's like, they have a name. You want to improve your onboarding and your retention, learn their name.
Yeah.
Expect them to be there. Be excited that they're there. Stop celebrating people when they quit and start celebrating people when they show up for work. That holds true to whether you're hiring men or women. But on the side, learn her name.
Yeah.
Have some respect for her. Avoid some of the stereotypes that we have of construction workers. Train them. Catcalling is not okay. Like those kinds of things. And I think that there's that perception of hostility sometimes that we just don't want to deal with in the industry.
And let me tell you something that a lot of people don't realize, that is a safety issue. So I years ago interviewed an iron worker, and a great iron worker, female iron worker. And she said that one issue she had, I'm 50 feet in the air, I'm however high I am in the air. And she said, when they allow sexual harassment to go on, I'm not as safe, because when I'm up there, I'm having to worry, what are they looking at? What are they saying? What are they doing? And I'm like, what? Yeah. Like, this woman had been in the industry, excellent. People were telling me, man, she is a jam up iron worker. She is it. But yet she has to get up there and worry about that. So listen, sexual harassment and discrimination is the elephant in the room always. I think we've come a long way from where we used to be. I think there's a long way to go. Some of the interesting things, we talked to this one particular company during our research, and what they did, they had a hard time with this. So they actually got a third party to handle their sexual harassment complaints from the company. And the place where people could go and fill it out. And it kind of did this layer, a little bit of removal from the company. They addressed it. They put out a very strong policy. Here's our belief: to be respectful and treat all people equally, and to make us a safe environment. And so they published it. They made sure everyone knew it. But if there was a complaint, there was a link to go to, and it registered. And that group actually went through it and did the initial to really find out what was going on. And then the company would address it. But the company was able to stick to, here's our policy, here's what we're doing. But they said, but here's the link that you will go to have this taken care of. So I think having a very public policy that everybody knows what the policy is, and your superintendents on the job, they need to know what that policy is, and they need to understand the importance that it's a safety issue. Yeah. This can cause safety, and they're responsible for their injuries and the safety count that's going on to their sites. So they need to understand, you don't want that. Let's all make sure that we work in the same fashion. I think people are willing to do it. The women we talked to, they said, look, I don't want anyone to think I can't do the work. I don't want anyone to make it easier on me. I don't want anyone to expect to make. I want to do, the only way I will learn to do the work is if you give me the true work. Don't give me the easier tasks and set it up where the other crew members resent me anyway. Give me the work and let me learn to be the best iron worker, pipe fitter, electrician, welder, whatever it is. I want to know all of it. And I've also talked to a lot of women that said, the men are great when they just know you really want to learn the craft and be really good at it. Mm-hmm. They're really helpful. But I do think it's the contractor's responsibility to make it public. This is our belief. This is how we're going to treat everyone on this site. And if there's a complaint, we have something set up, and it will go over here to this third party that will look and investigate this complaint. That is how we work here.
And I think it's important, too, that if you're a sub, that you let the GC know, hey, this is our policy. We will not tolerate this from your people too, because that's where I see a lot of the issues happening. It's not within the company or on the crew. It's the GC or someone else from another sub that causes this issue. And I think that it's communication, right? Like we live and die by communication in business. And I think we just need to communicate better and let people know this stuff won't be tolerated. And that, I think, will help the industry become more attractive when they start seeing those shifts, when women start seeing that shift, and young girls and the parents, they have a lot to say in this too. When they start seeing that shift and they're like, wow, they actually do want to treat them well. I know a lot about this industry, and my little girl, I'm like, I don't know if I want her going into construction.
But that tells us there's something needs to change,
Absolutely.
Right? We just talked about the pride, all the money people can make, the security that it gives them in their job. And then for you to be able to say, I don't know. I mean, we have to address that.
We do. Whew, so much that we could dig into. And this didn't get broken overnight.
No.
And it's not going to get fixed overnight.
No.
You know that. I mean, you go all the way back to the GI Bill, which was right after World War II?
Yeah.
I mean, we're approaching 100 years almost on that, right? I tell people all the time, I found an article published in 1966 about the shortage in the trades and how we need to let minorities in. So this is not a new problem. This is a problem we've had for almost 100 years, if not longer. I think we're finally realizing there's huge opportunities, and if we want to fix it, we have to fix it. So I've really enjoyed this conversation. I want to know, how do people get a hold of you or maybe this white paper or even some of the resources that you have available to them?
They can absolutely go to nccer.org, so our website. So we are the National Center for Construction Education and Research, but simplified, that is nccer.org. We have a research section there, the white papers. It's free. You just download it. We're a nonprofit organization that develops training and assessment. So all of this kind of stuff, we just want to help the industry. That's what we're tasked with doing. So that's there. We also have our Build Your Future site, like I said, and that's just byf.org. So a lot of the recruitment materials and things that are up there, we'd love people go and use it. It's there. That's what it's there for. It's for our industry.
Love it. And we did not touch on this today, but great training programs, certification programs, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but if someone really wants to put together a structured, formal, accredited apprenticeship program, you have resources for them on that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, people can pick and choose what they need for training. Or what we did was we went ahead and developed all of our training to meet the DOL Office of Apprenticeship requirements. So it's already done for you if that's what you need. A lot of people out there are dealing with the Inflation Reduction Act. To get those tax credits, you have to have people in apprenticeship programs. And so NCCR meets those time-based requirements for that.
A wealth of information there, tons of resources. I love it. Jennifer, thank you so much. Really enjoyed today's conversation.
I did too. This was wonderful. Thanks for having me on.